Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. And again, welcome to ATL Prime Sports. You can find us at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, search ATL Prime Sports on Apple and Spotify. Excuse me, at JJ Get You One, my personal Twitter, at RWY Jr., Wayne's personal Twitter, and at Corder Todd for Todd TC Corder, who is taking a vacation tonight, enjoying the beach. How you doing tonight, Wayne?
Well, I had heard a rumor. Now, this is just a rumor that the Atlanta Falcons front office has approached the NFL about making the games a three-period game instead of four quarters, kind of like the way the hockey does. And they had come up with some reasons as to why that might work out. And I hadn't heard anything else from that. So, like I said, that's just a rumor.
Well, keep me posted on it. I'd love to hear it because that would benefit the Falcons greatly. I'm doing well. It's much better than UGA's home schedule in 2023, which now includes UT Martin, Ball State, and UAB to tack on to your typical Kentucky, Missouri. You do get Ole Miss there and South Carolina games. Ball State replaces Oklahoma. If you haven't heard the news, folks, the SEC informed UGA and Tennessee to postpone their series with Oklahoma because of their movement to the SEC. So that's an eye-opener. UGA was set to travel to Norman next year, and University of Tennessee was set to host the Sooners in 2024. What's on tap for today's show? The voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen, joins us to talk about the Panthers' narrow defeat. This close yet again. We catch you up on the Braves, talk a little Falcons and how they blew yet another one as Memphis Wayne just mentioned in our pick six for the week. Without further ado, we welcome our guest, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen. Dave, thanks for coming on this week, and how you doing, man?
I'm good. Always good to be with you guys. And another close one against an ACC opponent, first Power 5 opponent to play us inside Center Parc Stadium in Atlanta. Normally when you're a group of five, you're going on the road when you play what they call the guarantee game. But for this particular series, we played in Chapel Hill a year ago, and they agreed to come back to Atlanta this year, and turned out to be a pretty good football game. I'll give credit to Mack Brown, the head coach of North Carolina. Not a lot of coaches will play a group of five on the road. He played Sun Belt opponents, Appalachian State, who he beat 63-61, and Georgia State, who he beat last Saturday night. Again, went on the road back-to-back in the Sun Belt. So I'll give North Carolina's head coach credit for doing that. Not a lot of coaches at the Power 5 are willing to play that game.
Yeah, I highly doubt UNC will put another Sun Belt team on their schedule after narrowly escaping Atlanta with that W on Saturday. Give us your thoughts on the game, Dave. Yet again, I mentioned it in the intro. What another shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Well, starting with our quarterback, who had a much, much better game against North Carolina than he did at South Carolina. He was 16 of 24, 186, 3 touchdowns. The thing that in talking to some of the players this week for our practice reports and our interviews for our pregame show, remember Georgia State got down 21-3 to the Tar Heels. And to a player, they all mentioned how they dug in their heels, battled back, tied that football game, and then eventually took a 28-21 lead before giving up a big play, which turned out to be a 50-plus yard run by their top running back, Amarian Hampton, to tie the game at 28, and then they end up winning it, 35-28. But we've been doing this show long enough, or I have been a guest on your show long enough. It's been more often than not when we've played a Power 5, if it gets ugly early, it has a tendency to stay ugly, and that was not the case last Saturday night at home against North Carolina. So kudos to Georgia State's coaching staff and players for, again, digging in those heels and really giving North Carolina a run for their money.
Yeah, I want to credit the strength and conditioning coach because Georgia State looked like they could really upset North Carolina at times. Here, you mentioned they took the lead, but talk about the very close defeat to the highlight of the Sun Belt Conference with 3 wins versus Power Five opponents. The Sun Belt Conference, if it wasn't already, is definitely now on the map. I feel that it's the best Group of Five conference in college football right now, Dave. What about you? What say you?
Well, it would have been great if we had if Georgia State beats North Carolina. That's 4 huge wins in one day for the Sun Belt Conference, which, with what's happened to the American Athletic, with the loss of 3 big-time programs in UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, eventually to the Big 12, I think you're right. The Sun Belt certainly came out and said, hey, look over here for a minute at what we're doing. Marshall goes in to South Bend and beats Notre Dame. Appalachian State, coming off that disappointing 63-61 loss at home to North Carolina last Saturday, goes on the road to College Station and beats Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. A great win, over an SEC opponent. Georgia Southern goes into Nebraska. And granted, Nebraska's down. They're struggling. It doesn't matter. It's still a good non-conference win. And if we had been able to beat North Carolina, that would have been 4 big Group of 5 Sun Belt wins over Power 5 conference teams, which, listen, the 3 of the schools doing it is fantastic. If Georgia State had done it in our own world, it would have been outstanding, but would have made it even better for the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and you mentioned Georgia Southern. We talked about Clay Helton. That's a very, very alarming hire because he's a great football coach, and he's taken that quarterback, and I think he's leading the nation in passing or close to it. So
he was Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Week this week, and what is he, a transfer from Buffalo, I believe?
Yeah, I believe. I was going to say Buffalo. I knew it was a school up in the Northeast. So we go from that to talk about Coach Elliott, and he said it best, Dave. I was reading the article on Georgia State's website. I feel really good about our football team. We had opportunities to beat both of those teams. We weren't outmatched. This team has to feel good heading into a weekend versus the 49ers of Charlotte, and then conference play the week after that. These just barely missing on the bell, ringing the bell for the victory there. This team's got to feel good, though.
Yeah, I mean, what a difference a year makes. When we left Chapel Hill a year ago with a 59-17 loss, that was a quiet flight back to Atlanta because, I mean, to be honest, not that the effort wasn't there, but, Georgia State was kind of outclassed with regards to, just what North Carolina was able to do to us in putting up 59 points. What a difference the season makes. Georgia State went toe-to-toe with North Carolina, could have very well come out of that ball game with a win. And even on the radio, most of the time when you're playing a Power 5, you're cognizant of the fact that you're playing a Power 5 conference school, whether it's been when we've been at Auburn or whether we've been to Alabama or Washington or Oregon or Clemson or West Virginia, wherever we've been. You always know you're at a Power 5, facility, stadium. And I got to be honest with you that, even though I knew it was North Carolina last Saturday night, on our radio broadcast, after a while, it just felt like we were going toe-to-toe. We looked good once we got over the 21-3 deficit. In other words, I never really felt like Georgia State was the underdog. I never felt like Georgia State was supposed to lose the game because we're the Group of 5 and they're the Power 5. In other words, it felt like it was just a college football game in Atlanta, Georgia on a Saturday afternoon between 2, let's call them pretty good football teams. Not going to call them great yet. They've got 3 wins against no losses. We're 0-2, but I think we're much better than an 0-2 team. We'll find out here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Again, starting with Charlotte on Saturday. But I never had that overwhelming feeling that, we're down here and North Carolina's up here. It really did feel like, and maybe because I watched the North Carolina Appalachian State game at the end and had an idea of what to expect, it really did feel like Georgia State and North Carolina, and they were on the field neck and neck, but it didn't seem like they were an ACC and this was the Sun Belt. It kind of felt like that.
Much of the game it did for South Carolina as well. I think that's just a testament to, again, I mentioned the strength and conditioning coaches, and now you got to talk about Coach Elliott, position coaches all the way down. Georgia State's not backing down from anybody, and you better watch out scheduling Sun Belt teams in the near future, because I think this is the next Group of Five team to step up and, or I should say conference, next Group of Five conference to step up and knock this thing out of the park. And it wouldn't surprise me, Dave. We talked about it last year. Coastal Carolina knocking on the door, Louisiana knocking on the door. One of these teams is going to get into the college football playoffs discussion, or at least a New Year's Six Bowl very soon.
Well, I have felt that Appalachian State could go toe-to-toe with most of the teams in the Power Five. I'm not saying they should be a Power Five program, but I feel like on any given Saturday, when you look at the top 2 or 3 programs in the Sun Belt, of which Appalachian State has been consistent since they joined the Sun Belt from the Southern Conference, then on any given Saturday, no matter whether they're at home or whether they're at College Station, and I'm not saying they'd go into Alabama and beat Alabama. What I'm saying is they could go in and at least hold their own. And the case with many of the Power Fives, from the middle of the pack schools to the bottom of the league, they could go in there and play with them and in many instances beat them. Well, now Marshall has shown that they're capable of doing that. I think we have shown that we're capable of doing it, even though we didn't do it in our 2 opportunities so far this year. You mentioned the guys down south in Statesboro obviously look to be a much better football team than they've been the last couple of years. So, as always, looking forward to the annual showdown between Georgia State and Georgia Southern. But you mentioned strength and conditioning and Coach Elliott. And listen, it's an old cliche that, good football teams take on the personalities of their coaches, their head coach, their position coaches. And because they spend so much time during the off season and the summer and then in season with strength and conditioning coaches, it's only obvious that they're going to, be influenced by them and take on their personalities as well. So knowing Coach Elliott as I know him from where I sit, I'm not surprised at all that, for example, getting down 21-3 was not nearly the end of the ball game, because that's not the type coach that Coach Elliott is. I mean, in classic terms, he's a battler, he's a fighter, he's a scrapper. I can only imagine what kind of a player he was I think he was a middle linebacker, just one of those all-out crash and burn kamikaze kind of guys who, love the physical contact. And, I just see, like, for example, our middle linebackers, Jordan Venzial and Blake Carroll, and the guys that are backing them up. I look at them and I'm like, that's probably the kind of player that Coach Elliott was when he was a player at Appalachian State. So I'm not surprised. And again, I know it's a cliche, but watching it every day, and I've been at practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'll be there Thursday of this week as well. They do kind of take on the personality of their head coach, because, to be quite honest with you, he's not going to let them have it any other way. And there is no quit in this Georgia State team. It's been evident in the 6 years or the 5 years and 2 games that he's been the head coach. And I fully expect that it'll be that way as long as he's coaching at Georgia State.
Yeah. Well, I watched that UNC Georgia State game. And if you were following me on Twitter, you know that I was not in agreement with very many of the referees' calls. In fact, I think the replay booth may have had more time on the field than either one of the teams did during the first quarter. You spoke about the upcoming conference shifts and changes and everything, and I believe your opponent this coming week is going to be one of our regular opponents, because Charlotte's joining the American Conference, and we this upcoming weekend are going to host our first home game against Arkansas State. So that'll be and once that's finished, I think we'll go into conference play. But the only team I'm worried about joining the American Conference is UTSA, because they are really proven to be a really tough team.
Let me answer the first point first. In the negotiations for North Carolina, and I don't know what it was at Appalachian State, but what I was told, the negotiations for North Carolina to return the game to Atlanta, those officials, and I did see a lot of your tweets, Wayne, during the broadcast, because I'm during breaks periodically we're looking at Twitter and looking at scores and stuff. That was an ACC officiating crew
I could
in
tell.
Atlanta on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, you can say it. I can't really say it. Were there some calls there that were kind of like you shake your head at? And
well, especially that one, it looked like he caught the ball when his foot was out of bounds or something.
Right.
But like I said, I felt like every play they went to the replay booth during that first quarter, and it was like, come on, what's wrong with the guy on the field making the call?
Yeah. So, when we point that out, that it's an ACC officiating crew working a Georgia State, North Carolina game in Atlanta, immediately if you close your eyes, what you picture is North Carolina has brought the officiating crew with them on the team plane, right?
Well, I didn't say that. You said that.
I said that, but I'm just saying from a perception standpoint, not you, but when we say that, that's the mental image that some people might get. That's not the case, but and those things are all negotiated when these contracts are negotiated. So I'm not surprised, but I'm not sure if it was an ACC officiating crew that did the game in Boone, North Carolina 2 weeks ago for the Appalachian State game. You mentioned the Charlotte 49ers, our opponent this Saturday night, and they come in at 0-3. And, they lost at Florida Atlantic, to Florida Atlantic. They lost to the College of William and Mary, which becomes a red flag.
Right.
And they hosted Maryland and lost to Maryland. Now, what makes me optimistic as the Georgia State radio crew, because they need a win really bad, but so do we.
Yeah.
They've allowed in the 3 ball games 43 points. 43 to Florida Atlantic, 41 to William and Mary, and 56 to Maryland. So if our defense can play as well for the most part that it's played in the first 2 games, a carryover from the way they played down the stretch last year when Georgia State won 7 of their last 8. And if Darren Granger can come out and sling the ball around the field to some of these young receivers that have really stepped up, like Robert Lewis, who's our leading receiver right now, and Jamari Thrash, it could be a really nice night in Atlanta with regards to Georgia State football. And our running game really started to kick in against the Tar Heels last week. Tucker Gregg, Jamias Williams, and then our quarterback Darren Granger. So the pieces are there. This is a great opportunity. You never go on a limb and say we're definitely going to win this game. But if you just look at the numbers, look at the way we played against North Carolina after getting down early 21-3, how Georgia State responded to that, and then realize that Charlotte is not North Carolina and Charlotte is not South Carolina at Williams-Brice on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
They've given up a lot of points, so I feel pretty good that if Georgia State plays as well or a little better than they did against North Carolina, that they could get out of Center Park Stadium on Saturday night, with a W.
I think the Owls from Florida Atlantic are another one of those teams that's going to be joining the American Conference. So, I should have been paying attention a lot more before now, but I'll definitely be watching that game Saturday night.
Well, Florida Atlantic and Florida International are 2 former Sun Belt Conference schools that about 10 years ago, the last time we had some major upheaval at the Group of 5 level, thought that Conference USA was a greener pasture, which in name, maybe it was one rung up the ladder than what the Sun Belt was at the time. But what a difference, let's say, 10 years makes. Conference USA isn't anywhere near the Sun Belt right now. And so if FAU, if and when they go to American Athletic, more power to them. I still think the American Athletic is a really good league. But the Sun Belt right now is really playing on all cylinders for the most part.
You're listening to Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, tell our listeners how they can catch the call Saturday against the 49ers.
Well, our radio network has a flagship in Atlanta, 50,000 watts, 88.5 FM, WRAS. You can download the GSU Athletics mobile app, which also will have a listen live button on it as well come Saturday night. TuneIn Radio app on your iPhone, iPad, or Android. Search WRAS, which I believe stands for, after the W, Radio at State. And then we have our Gainesville affiliate, 97.5 and 1330 AM. They're also available on the TuneIn Radio app at WGTJ. And if you just want to go to a website, you can visit lowcountryradio.com. And the Listen Live button is right there as soon as the page downloads.
We will be tuning in. I always get to listen, and I'll mute the TV, kind of do it old school. They're not together anymore, but it's still fun to do it and catch you on the call. Dave, thanks for joining us. Go Panthers. And we'll hopefully talk to you next week at 1 and 2.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate it. And it's always good to be with you guys.
Yes, sir. Again, go Panthers. Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Take care, Dave.
See you guys.
It's always good talking to Dave Cohen. Enjoy catching up on the Georgia State Panthers. Let's move from college football to some Major League Baseball talk. The Braves are right on the Mets' heels. Atlanta lost 2 heartbreakers in a row on Sunday, Monday. Let's talk some chop with the Atlanta Braves. Look, Wayne, the Braves closer situation is a lot of people think it's up for grabs. I say pump the brakes on that because Kenley Jensen, let's take a look at what his stat record is. 33 saves, good for first in the National League, second in Major League Baseball. Since here's where the controversy comes in. But since he walked in a run and blew the save in St. Louis on August 27th, his ERA, Wayne, over 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's for a closer. That's not even somebody who's playing, multiple innings. It's just really hard. It's really hard to watch Kenley Jensen pitch. I think it's because they get anxious that at any moment he's going to balk.
And next year he may balk a lot with this pitch clock rule coming into play. That's a discussion for a different day. But I think it's pump the brakes. That 9 ERA is exaggerated because it's broken down into a couple starts where he did really bad. But he said it best. His delivery's out of whack. He'll work through it. I got to believe him, as he's one of the best to ever do it. He's up there in total saves. He'll be a Hall of Famer, folks. So I got to believe him. I think if he gets his delivery under control and he gets his location under control, which comes with the delivery, then you get in sync with your delivery and your pitch location. I think Kenley Jansen will be Kenley Jansen again. It's really a matter of mental hump, getting over that mental hurdle. And once he does it, I feel like he'll be Kenley Jensen again. He's got the prestige and the history of doing very well in this league with the Dodgers. And now he's had a pretty good season with the Braves as well. Again, leading the National League in saves, but he also leads the National League in blown saves. So dicey situation, yes, but pump the brakes on wanting to bring in another closer. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if you do a little flip-flop. I wouldn't mind seeing Jansen close one night, then bring in Raisel Iglesias, who you got from Los Angeles. I don't think that's a bad move. Wayne, what say you? Is the closer situation up for grabs, or are you just saying pump the brakes like me? Or are you just done seeing Kenley post balk and walk-in runs?
Well, I believe he's a professional baseball player, and he'll get straightened out whatever slump or issue he's in. So I'm not that worried about it. I would say my mom's probably more concerned about it because she's a Braves fan and she watches every game she can, unless it's on the West Coast and doesn't want to stay up late. But, there's going to be a lot of changes. You had mentioned the pitcher rule where they got to, pitch within a certain number of seconds. But they've also said that once the batter's in the box, they got to stay in the box, which to me is going to take a little bit of that psychology out of the back and forth between the batter and the pitcher. And I guess you get in the box, you get Stanton, get ready for that pitch because it's coming quick.
Yeah, it'll hopefully speed up the game, and that's what they're trying to do. I'm not going to knock the rule until I see it in action. There's a couple rules I'm scratching my head about. I don't like the throw over limit, calling it a disengagement, and you only have 2 disengagements, which is a toss over or a pickoff attempt. So I don't like that. I think you'll see rules or loopholes in the rules where you'll see pitchers straddle the mound and just throw over to first base because they're not technically engaged, so they don't
Right.
have to disengage. I think you'll see stuff like that and little niches to the rule. So let's talk about bringing it back to another pitcher again. Braves are back 1 right now of the New York Mets after Tuesday night's 5-1 win. They lost Wednesday afternoon's day game in San Francisco, losing 2 of 3. So as we speak right now, they're 1 game behind the Mets, who are playing the Cubs right now as we speak. So they're right there nipping at the heels. The Braves had the right stuff last night, though. Kyle Wright won his Major League Baseball leading 18th game last night after pitching 5+ innings, striking out 4. This was Wright's 5th straight decision. That's very impressive. We have these, I shouldn't say we, the Braves had these young arms in Spencer Strider and Kyle Wright, who are just lighting up baseball right now. Spencer Strider right up there for Rookie of the Year. Young talent, obviously just mentioned Kyle Wright, right up there in wins. A lot of people don't think that's a big stat. I do. It means your pitcher is keeping you in ball games longer, resting your bullpen, and the Braves have a couple guys at the front end of their rotation that are doing that extremely well. And it's the reason why they've been the best team in baseball since June 1st is a bunch of these young guys. Again, Dansby Swanson added a 2-run go-ahead home run in the 3rd inning. Michael Harris, another RBI at single later in that inning. That was Tuesday night's game. And it's just these young guys, Wayne, they keep on chipping away. They keep on making impact plays, and they keep inserting their names saying, you can't take me out of this lineup. And Albies is coming back soon. He had a 5-hit night the other night in Gwinnett in a rehab start, so he's real close to coming back. This team is going to be really good going into the playoffs again. Wayne, what say you? The Braves are nipping at the Mets' heels. They got the right stuff the other night. What do you think of Kyle Wright?
Well, I can't really speak to Kyle Wright, but the team overall, I think, is in a really super good position because even if they don't finish ahead of the Mets, it's like they're a shoe-in for the wild card spot. I don't think anybody's even close. But what's really interesting is over in the NL West, the daggum Dodgers have already got it wrapped up. And,
Yeah.
I believe they're, of course, they're only 2 games away. They'll probably be the first team to 100 wins. I don't think Houston's got a chance of catching them, even though they're close. But as far as the wild card goes, I think Atlanta, has that to fall back on. Not that the fans or the team wants that.
Oh, you're absolutely correct about that. They have a 10-game lead on the next closest team to them, which is the Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies have a 2-game lead on the Padres. Brewers are 1.5 back. Giants are 9 back. And that's pretty much the only teams that are somewhat in it. And the Giants are really, really close to being just on the outside looking in with just under about 20 games to play remaining. Again, Kyle Wright, lights out. Michael Harris, lights out. Braves playing great baseball, nipping at the heels. Will they catch the Mets? I think they can. It's going to come right down to the wire. That second to last series at home versus the Mets is going to be huge. The division may be won or lost on the very last day of the season. Wayne, any final thoughts on the Braves right quick?
No final thoughts on the Braves, but if you want to compare them to my team, the Texas Rangers, I'm not even sure they're cutting the grass at the Ranger Stadium anymore because it's
Just leave it go till the winter
yeah,
comes.
just hey, get out there and play, guys. Have a good time.
Let's get our NFL quick hits in. What do you say, Wayne? The NFL's opening weekend did not disappoint. Several last-second wins, losses. Let's talk takeaways from a fun-filled week 1, and of course, talk about the Falcons' 1 millionth blown fourth-quarter lead. Let's get into it right here, right now, in our NFL quick hits. But before further ado, I want to travel back in time. Wayne, we didn't get your Super Bowl favorites last week. Give me your Super Bowl favorites, and then we'll get into the Falcons.
Well, I'm a guy who sometimes picks with my head, sometimes picks with my heart. My heart says that one team is going to be the Falcons, but my head says that the other team's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I really think they're the team that has a chip on their shoulder, even bigger than Buffalo does. So I'm picking Kansas City, Atlanta for the.
I like it. I like it, Wayne, and I will never ever doubt your Falcons Super Bowl
Well,
predictions. Let's talk
listen,
about those Falcons. Go ahead, Wayne.
I'm just saying, don't do like that because I'm a very emotional fan, and I will always pull for the Falcons. So even if they blow or give up 17 points in the fourth quarter, which I think should be eliminated, they should go to a 3-period game like hockey does.
3 periods and we're solid. I still got my red and black Falcons gear on. I'm gonna cheer for them till the day I die. But I will criticize when criticizing is due. Not going to criticize too much on this loss, though, and you'll see why. The Falcons blew yet another fourth quarter double-digit lead. Were you surprised? Not at all. I've learned to expect the unexpected with the Atlanta Falcons. New quarterback, same Falcons. Falcons have blown 5 double-digit leads in the last 2+ years. Let's start with number 1. The 20-point lead versus the Dallas Cowboys in September 2020 when we decided to, Wayne, you want it? I don't want it. TC,
Yeah.
does you want it? No one wanted
Yeah,
that
nobody.
onside kick. Number 2, a 16-point lead lost to the Bears in that same month. Number 3, December 2020. We all remember this one. This one may have stung the most out of all of them. A 17-point lead to Tom Brady and the Bucks. Still have yet to beat that guy as a Falcon. That one's tough to say. A 10-point lead to the Washington Commanders in 2021, and then Sunday's debacle makes it number 5. So you got 5 of those double-digit leads to digest over the last 2+ years, and I mean, let's take some good from this though. Okay, let's do take some good from this. The good, the Falcons had 4 sacks. Last season, Wayne, their game high was 3.
Yeah.
All right. Also, the Falcons rushed for 200 yards, led by running back Cordell Patterson, 22 carries, 120 yards, a touchdown. I like that. Round of applause for that. The offensive line was getting a little push. Marcus Mariota was expanding the pocket, getting balls thrown downfield. Drake London had a pretty good opening game. I would like to see Kyle Pitts get more involved in the offense, but we did target him a bunch of times. Just only got the ball to him twice successfully. So I like what I saw in the offense. We get an extra touchdown there at the end. We don't drop some third downs, and that's the good.
Yeah.
The bad, only 38% on third down. Got to get better on that. 5 of 13, Wayne. If the offense converts just 2 more of those third downs, this is a 1-0 Falcons team we're talking about this week. Let's go back to my notes here. One of those third downs was a fumbled snap by Mariota late in the game where he probably looked like he would have had the first down, Wayne. What do you think about that? Would he have gotten the first down late in the game when he fumbled the snap on 3rd and 1 and had to recover it and we ended up punting? Do you think he would have gotten it? Because I do.
Yeah, I do as well. I really think just overall, taking in the first half of the game, they really looked like they were playing more of a team than they had maybe even in the last 7 years.
Yeah. So, look, the ugly of that part is also, look, you can't fumble twice from Marcus Mariota. Once he was trying to get more yards, he didn't realize he had already gotten the first down. Tries to extend the ball. We're in the red zone, fumbles it away. The Saints get it, blah, blah, blah. And then that costly fumble at the end of the game. You can't do that. You got to put the ball in the end zone in the red zone. You score one more touchdown there, that game's out of reach. The defense played extremely well for 3 quarters. We held Jameis Winston to around 50+ yards passing for 3 quarters. Then he blows up for 250 yards in the 4th quarter, and Michael Thomas woke up out of nowhere and said, I'm going to take over in this game, and looked like I used to look like when everybody thought I was the best receiver in the NFL. He may be back there, folks. He's barking his name again, and he has every right to be. Wayne, what's your final thoughts on the Falcons opening one Week 1 opening loss to the New Orleans Saints.
Well, not just the Falcons, but the entire NFC South. I would say it's probably going to be one of the more entertaining divisions in the NFL, just based on what I've seen on the first game.
Should be. Tom Brady's there. Jameis Winston's health is the question. And look, Baker Mayfield and the Panthers look to be really good. They almost lost. They almost came back and won that game. Lost on a walk-off field goal. One of those wins losses at the last second I was mentioning in the intro. So let's go and talk our biggest takeaways from Week 1. I'll shoot this one off. It's new offensive coordinator, no problem for Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Look, Allen threw for 297 yards on 26 to 31 passing with 3 touchdowns. Ken Dorsey, former Miami Hurricane, national champion of that team, as their new offensive coordinator. Ken Dorsey, Brian Dable, no problem. Doesn't matter who's running that offense. Josh Allen says, I'm still going to post an unbelievable fantasy game for you fantasy owners out there. Look, the offense looked the exact same, even though Allen had never worked with another offensive coordinator in his entire professional career. Explosive, fast. He was accurate with the football. And we all saw that stiff arm in Week 1 against the Rams that just looked like he was a fullback. Unbelievable play there. What say you about your biggest takeaways? And I'll give my last biggest takeaway before we get out of here, Wayne. Your biggest takeaway from the NFL in Week 1.
I was just excited that the NFL is starting, and then I get to have my phone conversations with fans of other teams throughout this Sunday.
Yeah, it's always fun talking smack with other fans, and we'll have to get Debbie the Texan back on here. Shout out to the Texans for tying that game against Matt Ryan and the Colts. They're up 20-3. She's a big time fan. That team's also fun to watch. Brandon Cook's out there, young team. Lovie Smith going back and hopefully turns that team around. The Texans deserve a winner out there. My second biggest takeaway, Dallas's offense looks stale and Dak goes down. You have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys if you're talking about the NFL usually. Look, Cooper Rush came in the fourth quarter after Dak's throwing hand was hit 2 or 3 times throughout the game. Looked like he really broke it on one of the last throws he threw of the night on a completion to CeeDee Lamb where he lofted it up, and his hand, you see it hit the defender. I can't remember who was the defender there, the defensive lineman in his face, but you could see him come off working it, grimacing, and when he got to the sideline, it looked like he did say it's broke. Dak, look, he did have a successful surgery earlier in the week, and Jerry Jones says he would miss less than 4 games and would not go on IR. So that's huge. He had a plate inserted, successful surgery. Not going on IR is huge. And we'll see if he's back within 4 games or not, because if he's not back within those 4 games, Dallas Cowboy fans are going to freak out and the world could end in Dallas. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
For real, Wayne, your thoughts on the Dak Prescott injury?
Well, yeah, it's a serious injury, and 4 games feels like it's pushing it. But this is a tremendous opportunity for the second quarterback to come in and really show what he's got. Anytime there's an opportunity like that, it always gets my attention because I'm really anxious to see what somebody who wouldn't even consider to start now gets put in that position. And we'll see how their quarterback coaches and everybody else handle it too.
Yeah, and he was thrown into some action last year as well, and the players really responded well as they brought him up from the practice squad and made him the backup this year. Look, offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is going to have to get really creative with the run game, with Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard. He's going to have to figure a way to turn Ezekiel Elliott's clock back. Fantasy owners of Ezekiel Elliott, like myself, drafted him late, are excited about that. You got to use the run game to open up pass lanes for Cooper Rush, CeeDee Lamb, and Dalton Schultz, because if you don't, this could get ugly real fast, and you could be 0-4, 0-5 when Dak comes back. And if that's the case, it's not even worth bringing him back because you'll probably be too far out. But if you're able to stay 1-2, 1-3, 2-3, somewhere in that range when he comes back, we can see what happens. That about wraps it up. Any final thoughts on our NFL quick hits, Wayne?
Well, if you saw me smiling when you mentioned Tony Pollard, you probably know why. Because he's a former Memphis player, and if he's the one that carries the offense, that's great for me. I like it.
Yeah, you always want to see Memphis Tigers do well. Well, that wraps it up. Let's go to our pick six games. Pick the Monday spreads. We're doing 3 college, 3 pros. TCs will be up here in the corner on the YouTube, and I'll shout them out as well. We'll go Wayne, myself, and I'll shout out TC's pick. Number 12, BYU, 2-0. At number 25, Oregon, 1-1. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under in that one is 57.5. Wayne, what you got?
I'm taking BYU in the points. They really kind of impressed me in that game against Baylor, and I think they're much better. And Oregon, I don't really look for much from Oregon other than hype and those weird uniforms.
It's 3:30 Eastern on Fox. These teams meet for the first time, I should say, since the 2006 Las Vegas Bowl. Look, BYU held Baylor to 289 yards of offense in a game that went to overtime, held them to just 2.9 yards a carry. I expect them to slow down all that talent Oregon has. Oregon's a good team, but I think BYU's on a mission. Last year as an independent, it looks like they could be an outside contender for the college football playoff this year. They got the schedule. Give me BYU in those points as well, Wayne. And TC is going with Oregon at home. Number 22, Penn State, 2-0. At Auburn, 2-0, one of the bigger games of the weekend. Penn State, a 3-point road favorite. Over-under on that one's a 49.5. This game's 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Penn State won last year in Happy Valley, 28-20. Wayne, what say you?
Well, I'm taking Auburn in the points easy on this one. I haven't got my hat on today, but I think that Harsin, if anybody, has something to prove, and this would be a good way to prove it.
That's a good pick. SEC over the Big Ten. Look, TC's going Auburn as well. Your boy's going Auburn as well. One reason running back Tank Bigsby is averaging 7 yards 7 yards a carry despite average quarterback play. So I think if that offensive line, which is pretty good, if they can get some push, give this guy some room to run, whoever's the quarterback should be able to throw some pretty good play action passes. And Penn State's offense has been iffy the last couple of years. Their defense has been great. That's why the over-under in this one's 49.5. If I'm not mistaken, if you're listening to this today, it's even been bet down a little bit on some sites. I like Auburn in a low-scoring affair in this one to at least cover the spread. They may lose by 1 point, but that gets the job done in our job. But I like Auburn to win the game. We'll go to our third and final college game of the weekend, which pits 2 ranked teams in another one. 13 Miami, 2-0 at number 24 Texas A&M, coming off that tough loss to App State. A&M's 5.5-point home favorites. Over under in this one's also low, 48.5. 9:00 p.m. on ESPN. Wayne, what say you?
I'm taking Miami and the points on this one. I think Texas A&M still hadn't gotten their act together, and I don't think anybody's ever going to question, Jimbo Fisher this year, but I've just got a feeling Miami is on a resurgence, just like they're coming back.
I am taking Miami as well. I had to think. I hadn't put it down yet. I'm taking Miami in the points as well. Here's the biggest takeaway from that. I had to look this up. A&M has been in the red zone once in 2 games.
That's not good.
Once in 2 games. So I think Miami, coached by Mario Cristobal, has a big coming out party on the road. I like Miami in the points as well here. TC takes A&M to cover because he's doing the SEC.
Yeah. It's not.
over anything else. That's the
It's not
only
gonna.
thing he's doing.
It's not gonna help
Uh,
him.
I don't think it's going to help me either. I like the Canes in this one. Look, Chargers 1-0. We're going to the NFL now, folks. Chargers 1-0, Chiefs 1-0, and Arrowhead Stadium. Thursday Night Football at 8:15 on Amazon Prime. Kirk Herbstreit, Al Michaels bring you the action. Kansas City's a 3.5-point favorite. Over under is a high one, 54.5. Wayne, what say you?
I'm taking Chiefs to cover and cover big time. Like I said, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I really think that they're out to prove something to everybody that they're not the team that blows it in the playoffs anymore.
Chiefs cover for TC as well. This is tough for me. Keenan Allen's questionable. I think he's a big-time receiver for Herbert. Patrick Mahomes at home is the real deal. He doesn't lose at Arrowhead often. I got to go with the Chiefs to cover there. Don't want to. I really want to go with the Chargers, but I'm not going to bet with my heart. I'm going to bet with my mind. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to cover.
Yeah.
Falcons
Just
0-1.
a quick note on that Chargers Chiefs game. Do you ever sometimes get the feeling that the Chargers are just renting space in that SoFi stadium, that it's not really their home stadium? Because that's the
It
feeling
kind
I
of
get
feels
sometimes.
like it, man.
Yeah.
It really does kind of feel like it. It's kind of sad. Both fan bases really. It's still a Raiders town. There's a
Yeah.
lot of sports talk radio shows that I've listened to West Coast wise that still say Los Angeles is a Raiders town, and they fly to Vegas or make the short drive and just go to Raider games. Let's go Falcons 0-1, Rams 0-1. LA's a 10.5-point favorite, 47.5-point over under, 4:05 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Again, Rams hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Wayne, what say you? I know what you're going, but
Well,
I hear you say it.
yeah, I'm taking the Falcons and the points. In fact, if I were a betting guy, I'm pretty sure my wallet would tell me to take the Falcons and the points on this one, because I'm just not that confident in the Rams.
You know, they didn't look too good. Their offensive line looked bad. I'm taking the Falcons in the points as well. If the Falcons can get 4 sacks plus on Stafford, give me that Falcons in the points. They may lose by 10, but guess what? We're saved by the hook in that situation.
Yeah. Well, hey,
DC has the Rams covering. Go ahead,
yeah,
Wayne.
I just wanted to say that I know why he picked the Rams, because of Stafford. But as far as the way Stafford was playing in that last game, I would say Stafford is back. The only problem is he's back playing like he did when he played in Detroit.
Yeah, threw several interceptions, 3 interceptions by my count on the opening night versus the Bills, and his former teammate Von Miller sacked him a couple times in that game. Vikings, Eagles, Monday Night Football, 8:30 p.m. on ABC. 2 Monday night games, the other one's on ESPN. Philly is a 1.5-point favorite. The over-under is high in this one as well, 51 and a hook. Wayne, what say you?
Well, I'm taking Vikings in the point. It kind of feels like it's only a point over the Eagles for multiple reasons. I really like the underdog atmosphere of the Minnesota Vikings, but I've just never ever been an Eagles fan, and I know Stephanie Stallworth's not going to like hearing that, but I just, anytime the Eagles play, I'm going to have to pull against them.
Yeah, this was a coin flip to me. I really don't know who to pick. I think Kirk Cousins has a lot to prove. Justin Jefferson's great. Dalvin Cook, they can move the ball. It comes down to A.J. Brown for me, and what Jalen Hurts can do, moving the football in the air. And I'm with you. I'm taking the Vikings in the point because, look, I just think Kirk Cousins is underrated this year. I think Justin Jefferson's underrated. And I think if Dalvin Cook stays healthy, that's going to be a very underrated and underestimated football team in the AFC North. I like the Vikings in the points. Wayne, that wraps up our pick six. Any closing thoughts for the show tonight?
No, not necessarily. I'm ready for the Thursday night weird Amazon game, and then the games this weekend.
Yeah, I am too. I'm ready to hear Kirk Herbstreit's voice in an NFL game again. He does a very good job. My closing thoughts, I got two of them. Scott Frost out as Nebraska head coach after going 16-31 in 5 years.
Bad.
Will Urban Meyer's name come up as a candidate? Are they willing to sacrifice morals for victories? If you're in Fayetteville, Arkansas Saturday, hide your kids, hide your wives, because Bobby Petrino is coming back to Arkansas. Head coach of Missouri State, Bears, Hogs, Saturday afternoon on the SEC Network. I'm fired up for it, and I'm sure Arkansas fans are too. That's my closing thought. Anything else, Wayne?
Well, as far as Petrino goes, going back to Fayetteville, I'd say I'd worry more about motorcycle accidents happening more than I would because I don't see anybody up in that area wanting to have anything to do with that dude. But if he gets on something with two wheels, look out.
For Wayne in Memphis, Todd down at the beach, who's not with us, I'm JJ Jurjevich. This has been ATL Prime Sports. If you like the content, ding the bell, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Thanks for listening. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify. Again, at ATL Prime Sports for us all. Again, we'll see you next week. Go Panthers, and we'll see you next time. Get you one.